Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to show you how I painted Aragorn. He is the next member of the Fellowship that I've painted after Gandalf, Gimli, and Legolas. And I did him the same way as I did the other ones in Medibang Paint. And it's essentially the same process. The thing I realized when trying to find reference images for these characters is that Peter Jackson really likes super close-up shots, and I really did try to find some screen caps that were not like right up in their face. Like I wanted ideally to be able to see the top of their head and like the top of their shoulders, but yeah, unfortunately it's hard to find good ones that don't have like a bunch of extreme color grading, like super blue or super yellow, that aren't super close up. So this is what we got. He's a bit close up, but it is what it is. So mainly the same process as before. As per usual, I'm starting with the eyes because the pupils and the eyebrows tend to be the darkest part of a painting. Now, as was the case with, well, a little bit with Legolas, I don't know if so much with Gimli and Gandalf because those actors are basically exactly how I imagined those characters in the book, but with a little bit with Legolas and maybe a little bit more with Aragorn, I envisioned them a little bit differently before I watched the movies. And of course, now that I've watched the movies, my image of what these characters should look like has been very heavily influenced. But the goal wasn't to completely draw Viggo Mortensen exactly how he looks in the movies for this one. So if it looks a little bit different and it seems a little bit off, I mean, hopefully what you're seeing is what was intentional. I guess there's a chance it could be very off for other reasons. But yeah, it's not supposed to look exactly like Viggo Mortensen, but very similar. Maybe slightly kind of younger looking. I guess I wanted to capture the fact that like Aragorn lived to be a really significant age compared to like the other races of men in the series. But at this point, he's only in his 80s. I say only because he's like, let's do the math. He's like, how old was he when he when he died? 200 something, right? So, yeah, he's still pretty young actually, but he's grizzled, right? Like he is in the woods a lot and like doesn't bathe for days. So, I don't know, it was a balance of like he's young but he's lived through a lot and he's very weather worn. So I didn't keep a lot of like the lines on his face. I wanted to add a little bit of like maybe some strands of gray hairs, but this part I was like talking about, this was done on live stream by the way. And so I was talking about like how to write katakana vertically versus horizontally. Anyways, sorry. Maybe I should have cut that out, but this is the real live stream experience, so I want you to have a little bit of it too, even though this is sped up. But yeah, anyways, so the goal was to make him look a lot like Viggo, but not completely like Viggo. And that involved changing sort of the shape of his nose, sort of softening his face a little bit. And like the hair is slightly different as well. I darkened his eyebrows and brought them inwards a little bit because I don't know, that's just how I envisioned him, and I wanted a little bit more contrast on the face. And I was like, how it looks like he doesn't have eyebrows, which to be fair, in the reference image, his eyebrows are really light. So I just darkened them up a bit. And I think his eyes look pretty similar, but towards the end I do change a lot as well. So basically I go in with my soft watercolor brush as per usual. And I do like to do it piece by piece for digital painting like this. I explained on stream a little bit more of what I was doing, and you could see what I was doing when I was like color picking and stuff like that. The VOD is available on my YouTube, so you can see that and see how I do things in real time rather than just watch a time lapse. But I'll tell you here what you missed. So basically I use the color picker a lot, but pretty much never use the exact color that it picks up. because of a combination of things. One, I do change like the sliders and stuff, but also I have mixing settings on this soft watercolor brush that I'm constantly changing, and I'm basically like a good 99% of the time mixing on the painting, if that makes sense. So like if you're imagining painting in real life, you often have like a palette next to you that you can use to mix your paints in to get the right color. And occasionally, I'm someone who does this a lot. I just kind of wing it and like mix stuff on the canvas. And that's what I'm doing here very often because I don't have a palette off to the side to like mix things, which I mean, I could do it. I could if I wanted to, but yeah, that would involve like drawing off to the side and then using the color dropper for that. So basically the way I view it is we're taking the color dropper and choosing from a specific part of the reference image, and we're not getting the exact color. What we're doing is sort of limiting our options so that we get to the right color faster, if that makes sense. Because generally speaking, if you're color picking from a reference image, especially if it's like a movie still like this, where like there's a lot of motion and stuff, it's not exactly high quality, you're probably going to end up with like a pretty flat painting. And also it's good to learn how to mix colors anyway, just generally if you're going as an artist. And I do a lot of these portraits for practice mainly. I mean, they're copyrighted, so it's not like I can sell them really. It's just for funsies, for learning and for practicing. And so I think learning how to color mix properly is really important. But also just even if you weren't, it's not going to look good. So basically by using the color picker, we're limiting the options to choose from, if that makes sense. If we're looking at like a color chart and trying to pick from there, we're like just in the beiges or just in the browns or like just in the smoky blues and things like that. Like every time I click in a certain area. So essentially, sorry, I was trying out the Halloween brushes. I like was looking at different brushes to again see if I could blend in a different way, and I was looking through all the different ones and I was like, ooh, Halloween brushes. That's what was there. But yeah, so mainly I'm using the soft watercolor brush, it's not soft watercolor, it's watercolor in parentheses soft. That is what the default name is in Medibang Paint. And then I change the color load and the opacity and also the color mixing level based on literally just whatever I'm doing at that moment and how I want the colors to mix. So if you go again and watch the VOD, you can see me constantly going back and forth, switching those settings around like every 2 seconds, every time I like go to lay down some more brush strokes, based on what I need to blend or how I want the color to change, I will change the settings. And yeah, again, not very different. This is basically the same as my usual process here. The main thing with this one is I was doing it on stream and we did have a bit of a time limit because I was doing it in between morning work and, well, actually, it was during a typhoon, so I didn't have work that morning, but I did have work that evening, and it was fine. The trains were running and everything by then, but I had to leave during a certain, window of time, so I didn't get to finalize everything, and I think sort of like how I wanted like the nose to look and like the mouth to look and the eyes were not perfect by the time I finished. But I did go ahead and add a background and sign it. And then later on, I went into actually Procreate just to use the liquify tool because there isn't one in Medibang Paint, just to play around with it and see how I wanted it to change. The eye size I decided was fine. So I didn't change that very much using the liquify tool, but I did go and change the nose and the mouth mainly just to make it look a little bit different. Again, he looks a lot like Vigo, but not exactly like Vigo. So, it is what it is. Then I went in again in Medibang Paint and just sort of upped the contrast a bit, added lighter bits and darker bits, And I really wanted to render the hair a lot more because they looked a little too, like, one, a little flat, two, way too suave, not grizzled enough. So I had to add like a bunch of, I don't want to say make his hair stringy, but I kind of did make his hair look stringy because it's supposed to look a little stringy. And so I added a bunch of shading between like where the hair starts and the skin starts, just to show it's like 3D, you know, like casting a shadow onto the skin, and little touches like that. And I also went into the eyes as well and just really refined them because they were looking not like how I wanted them to look. There was just something a little off about them. So after rendering the hair a little bit more and messing around with that, I went and like changed the iris on the left side, so technically his right eye. I sort of moved it over a bit towards the left of the painting, and then adjusted like the inner corner. And for the other eye, yeah, here I was comparing, I got rid of the background so I could compare what the reference image eye looked like versus my eye that I had drawn. So I was like hiding the layer and then bringing it back and hiding it, bringing it back so I could see the reference underneath and see what was different. And that's when I decided to move the iris over a bit, added a bit more highlights and shadows to his hair. Again, make it a little bit more 3D, a little bit more realistic. Again, we're not going for hyper realism. I say this in a lot of videos, more like a slightly stylized, slightly based on realism kind of thing. But yeah, we're not going for, again, hyper realism, but like implying that there's hair there in separate strands rather than drawing each little strand. But yeah, this is where I started going in with eyes like I said I was going to do. It's hard to see in the time lapse because they're really tiny changes that only really added up by the end to make a difference. And he ended up basically looking like this towards the end. I did change the eye on the right side, like the bottom right of that eye, a lot as well, because the shape of that was really throwing me off. And again, I apologize if that wasn't easy to see, but we did it. This is it. This is him. This is my guy. This is a little bit closer to how I envision him. It's, again, not exactly like Vigo. He looks a little bit softer and rounder and, again, slightly younger, but I hope he still has that, again, grizzled appearance of someone who is, for his race, relatively young, but has lived a lot outside and fought a lot and had a lot of experience fighting evil things, and I hope that comes across in this painting. I know, technically speaking, not even technically, for realsies, Aragorn shouldn't have a beard. He does not have a beard in the books, and there's a reason for that. It's because elves need to live a really long time in order to get to the point where they can grow a beard, because their life cycles are much, much longer. So the only person by the time of the end of the Third Era and the beginning of the Fourth Era in Middle Earth, or really probably on Arda at all, we don't really have evidence of anyone else. It's possible, but the only one we know of is Círdan the Shipwright, and it's because he's one of the firstborn. He's the only firstborn that we know of, and he's the only one who's lived long enough to be able to start growing a beard. And Aragorn is descended from someone who was an elf and also a little bit of a Maya, but technically he is descended from a Maya, but the first king of the Númenóreans, Elrond's brother Elros, was descended from, elves and Maya. So it makes sense that he would not have a beard. But basically at the time of The Lord of the Rings, he is never described as having a beard. And we can probably attribute that to his elvish heritage. But yeah, I rambled on too much. I just didn't want people in the comments to be like, why does your Aragorn have a beard if this is not supposed to be strictly based off of Viggo Mortensen? So if you didn't want to listen to the rant, I'm sorry. But that's it for now. Thank you for watching. Please give this video a like if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. I do art, I play lots of games, I stream 3 times a week, and I post videos whenever I get around to it. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye!